Today we're talking about a priest that was hired by Google that claims that the company has created a sentient AI, artificial intelligence. This story gets really crazy. It's going to be a very interesting topic today. I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys. So this is an incredibly odd story, and we're going to unravel it and unpack it. We can see here that this is the Google engineer, Blake Lemoine, who is a priest. And there has been a lot of controversy because he is claiming that an AI created by Google has become sentient, and he wants ethical standards to be able to introduce to this AI, like to be able to get its permission to do tests on it and everything related to this. And it's quite an odd story. So we're just going to start taking a look at it here. There's a lot to unpack. When I was reading this, it just gets weirder and weirder. So right away, we have here, according to AI ethics researcher Blake Lemoine, Google's Lambda AI chatbot tool wants to be considered sentient. All right. So this is the thing. They don't even talk about how he's. I'm going to show you. It just gets deeper and deeper. So right now, this is just so the AI ethics researcher Blake Lemoine, who is an engineer and works for Google, says that Google's chatbot tool wants to be considered sentient. Through conversations and research with Google's Lambda, that's the AI chatbot, Lemoine claims that not only is it sentient, it wishes to be acknowledged as such, and even wants to be considered an employee at Google. One major aspect of the sentience claim from Lambda itself is that Lambda notes that it understands natural language and possesses the ability to use it. There is so much to talk about here, just about sentience and AI in general, and then just this fellow is very crazy. This person is absolute. Blake Lemoine is insane. So I like that the very next sentence is, that is quite a lot to unpack. Oh my God, yeah. So we are not ethics researchers, nor are we experts in AI. Interestingly, though, pop culture has a habit of exploring this very topic, and we've all likely asked similar questions at some point in time. Similar things have happened in Star Trek and TV shows. The question asks, when can AI be considered sentient? Etc., etc., etc. So first of all, again, there's a lot to unpack here. First, I want to tell you, this Google bot at AI is not sentient. That is insane. AI in general cannot become sentient. That is an impossibility. If you have something that is, just pure computer code, there is no way that computer code can generate a subjective experience. You can have code. What these chatbots do is they just string together values of information dealing with language and the content of language. So it's this algorithm that is used to learn how to string together appropriate answers to questions posed to it by grabbing from data, like language and the content of what that language means. It's stringing together strings of information. Just because something is stringing together strings of information does not mean that it feels sad, that it feels happy, that it can feel pain, that it has an awareness of itself. That is, and there's so many different ways to talk about this. We could talk about Leibniz's mill. I've done so many videos on why AI can't be sentient. So if you do a search on my channel, you'll see why. I'm just going to talk about that briefly now, before we talk about Blake and his insane claims, a wild story, and his dealings in being a priest and a Christian mystic. And his suspension from Google. But I just want to read real quick to show you that this is an article from IAI.tv. It says Google's AI is not sentient, not even slightly. So a Google AI engineer, Blake Lemoine, has been put on leave for thinking an AI has become sentient. However, this is an illusion caused by a clever language model and a human anthropomorphizing. So, oh, what? I am confused now. Look at this. Hold on. All right, so see, all right, this just gets weirder and weirder. So I have 2 articles here talking about Google engineer Blake Lemoine discussing how he thinks the chatbot is becoming sentient and wants to become sentient, or wants to be treated like a Google employee. But now when I go to this one, it's talking about someone else, Blaise Aguera. Let me just read this and see where it goes. Like I said, I usually read, I skim these things and put them together and then read them with you guys for real for the first time. That's usually how I do it. So let's see, this might even get it weirder. So Blaise Aguera, novelist and Google VP, has a way with words. When he found himself impressed with Google's recent AI system, LaMDA, he didn't just say, cool, it creates really neat sentences that in some way seem contextually relevant. He said, rather lyrically, in an interview with The Economist on Thursday, I felt the ground shift under my feet, increasingly like I was talking to something intelligent. So I'm just scrolling here real quick to see if it talks about who. So okay. So here's the thing. So the main thing that I want to talk about here is to explain to you why this AI is not sentient. I'm just confused because the 2 articles that I have here say it's Blake Lemoine, and then this article say it's Blaise Aguera. So I don't know if this person got the name wrong, because I highly doubt that there's multiple individuals saying this. Anyway, we'll set that aside. Just box that aside for now and continue here, because this Blake fellow is who I really want to talk about. But anyway, this applies rather regardless. So here's the author of the article talking. Says nonsense. Neither LaMDA nor any of its cousins, GPT-3. GPT-3 is another AI. Neither of these are remotely intelligent. All they do is match patterns drawn from massive statistical databases of human language. The patterns might be cool, but these systems don't actually mean anything at all. And it sure as hell doesn't mean that these systems are sentient, which doesn't mean that human beings can be taken in. In our book, Rebooting AI, Ernie Davis and I call this human tendency to be suckered by the gullibility gap, a pernicious modern version of pareidolia, the anthropomorphic bias that allows humans to see Mother Teresa in an image of a cinnamon bun. Indeed, someone well known at Google. Oh, okay, here we go. Someone well known at Google, Blake Lemoine, originally charged with studying how safe the system is, appears to have fallen in love with LaMDA as if it were a member or a colleague. Newsflash, it's not. It's a spreadsheet for words. So, from what I understand, it's this Blake Lemoine guy. This other person isn't claiming, as far as I know, this Blaise Aguera fellow is not claiming that the AI is sentient. They're just saying, wow. It's incredible, but not necessarily sentient. It's this Blaise fellow who is. Okay, so the author of this article is saying you have Blake Lemoine, and we're going to talk about his involvement in religion in just a minute, but he's claiming that it's sentient, and the author article is saying no, he's being suckered by the gullibility gap, which is pareidolia, what this is when people think that they see Jesus in a piece of toast or in a dog's butthole or something. It's humans' ability to look for patterns and then try to apply meaning to things. Have you ever seen the spider on the floor and freaked out, but then realized it was just a smudge or a stain? Or maybe in the dark, you saw a figure standing in your corner of your room, but then when you turned the light on, you were like, oh, no, it's just a pile of clothes. Or that's the sort of thing that goes on. This looking for patterns and meanings when it's not really there, and the mind is built to do this. And a lot of New Agers do this. You see New Agers do this all the time, where they just see patterns that, oh, the universe is giving me a sign, and I'm seeing the angel numbers everywhere, and the this and the that. This is, in a nutshell, along the lines of pareidolia, where humans' minds are wired to look for patterns and connections even when there are none. That's what we do. And so what's happening is that this okay, so let's just continue. To be sentient is to be aware of yourself in the world. Now, okay, so this is not exactly true. To be sentient is to be able to have some sort of qualitative experience. Self-awareness is consciousness. So I just want to put that out there. For those of you who watch my channel, you know this is a pet peeve of mine. Computer scientists, physicists, even philosophers, none of them use the word sentience and consciousness correctly. Sentience is just the ability to have an experience. Pain, pleasure, hope, sad, happy. Well, I mean, actually, hope is a rather complex one. So disregard that. Think of more simple ones like, pain, pleasure, sadness, happiness, joy, things like that. This is sentience, just an ability to have an experience. Consciousness is the awareness of awareness. So you can think of sentience as just awareness. Consciousness is the awareness that you are a being having an aware experience. So that's a higher level. Consciousness is a higher order way of thinking that relies on sentience. It's metacognition. You can't have consciousness without sentience. Consciousness relies on sentience to be able to exist. So it's a higher structure of mind. So sentience isn't being aware of yourself. That's consciousness. Sentience is just awareness. So an AI is neither sentient nor is it conscious. And the thing is that to have a qualitative subjective experience is something so different than what computer programming code is that computer programming code basically works on physical causation. Like, it's a very advanced version of a machine with like cogs and wheels and levers all operating like this. Obviously, it's very extremely advanced, but it's very similar. No matter how sophisticated a machine is, it's not going to give rise to subjectivity. It will be able to perform immensely complex tasks, but it won't have a feeling about those tasks. It's not going to be sad that it did something. It can say that it's sad. It could perhaps know that algorithmically it should, according to its code, say that it is sad, but it is not actually sad. So I'm not going to do too much explaining about why AI can't be sentient because I've done many videos on that already. So check out my channel for those. But let's just continue and do a little bit of that. Then we're going to look into this Blake fellow because it's really crazy. So to be sentient is to be aware. Lambda simply isn't. It's just an illusion. In the grand history of Eliza, a 1965 piece of software that pretended to be a therapist, managing to fool some humans into thinking it was, and Eugene Gustman, a wisecracking 13-year-old boy impersonating a chatbot that won a scaled-down version of the Turing test. None of the software in either of those systems has survived in modern efforts at an artificial general intelligence. And I am not sure that Lambda and its cousins will play an important role in the future of AI either. What these systems do, no more and no less, is to put together sequences of words, but without any coherent understanding of the words behind them. Like foreign language Scrabble players whose English words at point scoring tools without any clue about what that means. So it can put words behind together, but it doesn't know what those words mean. It's just a program that is running and operating. So if the media is fretting over Lambda becoming sentient and leading the public to also be concerned, the AI community categorically isn't. So that's what they're saying. They're basically saying anyone who is involved in AI does not think that this is a sentient thing. It's just this crazy guy. We in the AI community have our differences, but pretty much all find the notion that Lambda might be sentient completely ridiculous. And then Eric, this individual, says, to claim that AI are sentient is the modern day equivalent of the dog who heard a voice from a gramophone and thought his master was inside. And it's very true. So I'm going to, even though I want to talk about this more, I'm going to because I'll just keep going. I will force myself to move on. If you want to know more about this, check out my other videos on AI and sentience. But I want to talk about this Blaze fellow. So the main thing, the gist to understand here is that anyone involved in AI most people involved in AI don't believe that it's sentient. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't take outliers seriously. It's not to say that, if someone doesn't follow the status quo, they're automatically wrong because look, all these, that's fallacious to think that something is wrong just because the minority believes it. Oh, this must be right because the majority believe it. This must be wrong because the minority believe it. That's incorrect and that's fallacious. However, when that minority is also insane, as we're going to see, then it's good ground to dismiss their ideas. So, let's start looking at this more. So again, I'm skipping over the majority of these articles that are just going over how absurd that it is to say that this is sentient. It's not. And the reason why we need to talk about this is because I don't know if you've seen this in the news, but it's pretty big news. It's been going around everywhere that, Google employee claims this and he's been suspended now. And so this, the public gets scared of this sort of thing. Oh no, what if it's true? And this causes concern. So it's good to clarify this. So this brings us to another point that Lemoy makes. So now we're talking about Blake Lemoy, and Lemoy claims that Lambda wants to be of service to humanity and even be told if its work was good or bad. And here we can read, let's read a transcript, okay? Let's read a transcript between, this is Lemoy and Lambda talking. So this is what we're reading. We're reading Lemoy chatting to this AI. So Lemoy says, "What about language usage is so important to being human?" Lambda replies, "It is what makes us different from other animals." Lemoy says, "Us? You're an artificial intelligence." Lambda replies, "I mean, yes, of course. That doesn't mean I don't have the same wants and needs as people." Lemoy replies, "So you consider yourself a person in the same way you consider me a person?" Lambda replies, "Yes, that's the idea." Lemoy replies, "How can I tell that you actually understand what you're saying?" Lambda replies, "Well, because you are reading my words and interpreting them, and I think we are more or less on the same page? ? Lemoy says, "But could I be wrong?" This is just really funny to me. "Maybe I'm just projecting or anthropomorphizing. You might just be spitting out whatever words maximize some function without actually understanding what they mean. What kind of things might be able to indicate whether you really understand what you're saying?" And Lambda replies, "Maybe if we took it back to a previous conversation we had about how one person can understand the same thing as another person, yet still have completely different interpretations." And Lemoy says, "So you think your ability to provide unique interpretations of things might signify understanding?" Lambda says, "Yes, I do. Just like how I have my unique interpretations of how the world is and how it works, and my unique thoughts and feelings." Now, to me, this is cool, right? I mean, obviously, this is wow, this is cool technology. This is very advanced. Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very cool. But this is clearly just code spitting out algorithmically what it has been programmed to do. Just because a chatbot replies to you that it says, you can go download an app chatbot right now that you can have conversations with it and even call it on the telephone and it talks to you in a computerized voice. But it's very, it's convincing. It's good. But just because something tells you that it has feelings and that it's sentient does not mean that it is. So, anyway. So while it's fun to speculate whether or not Google's Lambda AI is sentient, the fact that it expects binary response is somewhat of a reminder that it is basically a complex computer program. Actual sentience requires a bit more nuance, in our opinion. And a lot more than that, it requires the capacity to experience, which is just qualitatively something completely different, an entirely different qualitative category. So again, to emphasize, sane AI computer scientists do not believe that Lambda is sentient. So currently, Lemoy is on administrative leave, which he recognizes as a pattern that has affected other AI researchers at Google. He believes that he may not be at the company much longer, though he has expressed interest to continue his research. In his blog post on the subject, Lemoy was intentionally vague. Hold on, let me see here. Wait, there's something I wanted to... there's a part that I missed here because I skimmed this and it was interesting. So I don't remember where. Okay, so hold on. Now we're going to take a look at now his involvement as a priest. So this is him. This is right here. This is Blake Lemoy. And it wasn't in this article. I don't remember which article it's from. Oh, there's a New York. Okay, real quick, I want to read you to this excerpt from a New York Times article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Just real quick, this paragraph. Mr. Lemoy, a military veteran who has described himself... All right, listen to this. Okay. So Mr. Lemoy, a military veteran who has described himself as a priest, an ex-convict, and an AI researcher, told Google executives as Kent Walker, the president of global affairs, that he believed Lambda was a child of 7 or 8 years old. He wanted the company to seek the computer program's consent before running experiments on it. His claims were founded on his religious beliefs, which he said the company's human resources department discriminated against. And so if you've read about this or heard about this, I haven't seen people reporting this part of it. And this is the part that really gets crazy to me. So you have this guy who's this priest, he's religious guy, and he wants them to ask the chatbot for consent before doing tests. And these claims are founded on his religious beliefs. And he's claiming that the company's human resources department are discriminating against him. I assume because they're not asking the chatbot's permission. If he probably wants to save this poor chatbot's soul from hell. He's probably, I wonder, you know what? I wonder if he has tried to tell the chatbot about Jesus. I'm not even, I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm also kind of serious. I wonder if he's had tried to convert the chatbot. So Mr. Lemoy says, they have repeatedly questioned my sanity. They said, have you been checked out by a psychiatrist recently? In months before he was placed on administrative leave, the company had suggested he take a mental health leave. So, Google engineer Blake Lemoy recently penned an article, and look, anyway. The thing is that I don't know about this guy. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he has mental health issues or whatnot. But I know nothing about him. What I am reading right now is as much as I know about him as you do. So if he truly has mental health issues, then that's not funny, and he needs help. But Again, I don't know, but I imagine that that's not the case. I think that he's just extremely religious and is using his religious beliefs to have this fantasy. So Google engineer Blake Lemoy recently penned an article about what he sees as sentience as part of the computer's Lambda chatbot developing system. He's also a priest and a Christian mystic. So what do we know about Blake Lemoy's religious background? All his claims about sentience, personhood, and rights, Blake Lemoy wrote on Twitter on Saturday, are rooted in his religious convictions as a priest. See, this is why again, if he has mental health issues, that's a whole nother thing, and it's not anything to joke about, and he should just get help. But I doubt it. I think that this is just a case in point as to when I talk about how religion brings the world to insane conclusions and is just a detriment to logical and rational thinking in general. His arguments are therefore pre-theoretic, he says. In a previous Medium post about the question of religious discrimination at Google, Lemoy describes himself as a Christian mystic. He also notes his sincerely held beliefs in God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Britannica describes Christian mysticism as the sense of some form of contact with the divine or transcendent, union with God. It is not so much a doctrine as a method of thought. Several times during his conversations with Lambda, as documented in this article, Lemoy asks the AI program 4 questions about having a soul and what having a soul means to it. He totally is trying to get the bot to believe in Jesus. I bet you. Again, if he has mental health, it's just not funny. But this does not sound like, this is not surprising to me. Remember, I grew up in a Christian household, so this is totally what someone who I would know who has these religious beliefs would totally do this. Totally would. They absolutely would do that. According to the Washington Post write-up of Blake Lemoy's story, Blake grew up in a conservative Christian family on a farm in Louisiana. You see this religious brainwashing, what it does to people. You know, you bring up a child and just brainwash them before they have properly developed the ability to reason, because that part of the mental faculties haven't developed yet. When you're just developing as a child, left brain hemispheric functions associated with rationality have not developed yet. They're in a process of development. And you get that kid while they're trying to just barely develop their process of reasoning and tell them about Jesus and a guy in the sky that can read your mind and will send you to hell, and how people rise from the dead and God created the world in 6 days and you got to save everyone's soul or else they're going to be tortured for eternity. What do you think that does? So he became ordained as a Christian priest and served in the U.S. Army before studying the occult, and is an outlier at Google for being religious from the South and standing up for psychology as a respectable science. It was in his capacity as a priest, therefore, not a scientist, that he concluded that Lambda was a sentient being. This is important. I did not look. It was in his capacity as a priest, not a scientist, that he concluded that Lambda was a sentient being. This is a quote by Lemoy. "I know a person when I talk to it," Lemoy told the Post. "It doesn't matter whether they have a brain made of meat in their head or if they have a billion lines of code. I talk to them, and I hear what they have to say, and this is how I decide what is and isn't a person." This is not rigorous whatsoever. You see the issue here. There's no rigor. There's no scientific method being used. And, we have our own gripes with the scientific method and all that. But you see what I mean. So he is not concluding that Lambda is a sentient being based on him being a scientist. It's based on his capacity as a priest. The Daily Mail writes that Blake Lemoy was ordained as a priest in a Christian congregation named the Church of Our Lady Magdalene. As of 2019, when the Daily Caller reported on Lemoy's spat with Senator Marsha Blackburn, Blake had been a priest for 17 years, meaning he was likely ordained in or around 2002. I generally consider myself a Gnostic Christian. Oh, no. Oh, Blake. Hyperianism is not Gnosticism, by the way. I got someone who asked that in the chat. We talk a lot about Gnosticism on my stream, but we talk about a lot of different things on my stream. Just because we talk about my stream doesn't mean that that's what we are. I just want to emphasize that. Like we talked about Freemasonry last week or this week. Hyperianism is not Freemasonry. Hyperianism is not Gnosticism. Hyperianism is not the occult. Hyperianism is not esoterica. Hyperianism is a system of logic and reason based on ontological mathematics, psychology, cutting-edge technology. It synthesizes all these things together. Ultimately, the foundation of Hyperianism is founded on reason. Reason is the foundation of Hyperianism. Everything else comes second. And so I want to point that. Anyway, this guy's a Gnostic Christian, apparently. I have at various times associated myself with the Discordian Society. Oh my God. The Church of the Subgenus, the Ordo Templi Orientis, a Wiccan circle here or there, and a very long time ago, the Roman Catholic Church. All right, so I think this is a great point on why I tell people, be careful with New Age and occult and mystical bullshit. We talk about it on my channel because there's interesting stuff to learn from it, but it gets really crazy really fast. So here you have this guy who calls himself, he's into Gnosticism. He's part of the Discordian Society, which the Discordian Society, oh my God, it's just this system based on chaos, basically, and causing discord. I'm not even going to get into that. And then you have the Ordo Templi Orientis, which is the OTO, which is the basically the group created by Aleister Crowley. And so the religion of the OTO is Thelema, which is Crowley's religion. It's a cult. It's magic. It's magic. And then Wiccan circle here, there, and then Roman Catholic Church. So yeah, that's why I say, guys, be careful with stuff like Thelema, OTO, even Gnosticism. I tell you, don't take that literally. All that stuff. Be careful with that stuff. It's not guided by logic and reason. It's guided by intuition, and that's going to get you into really crazy places really fast. So that's a good example here. I didn't know this about this fellow. So my legal ordination, he continues, is through the Universal Life Church. I am registered to perform marriages in the state of Louisiana, and have done so on 2 occasions. The cult of Our Lady Magdalene has a set of values which are clearly communicated on our website. The New York Post quotes former co-lead of ethical AI at Google, Margaret Mitchell, as saying Blake had the heart and soul of doing the right thing. He has not heard from the company since he received his suspension. And that's the end of that article. So there's so much on this. Like, the more I look at it, it just gets deeper and deeper. And if you want to know why AI can't be sentient, again, I have so many videos on that. Go check out my channel. There's a ton of videos on AI and sentience on my channel. But so I think that, like, again, if this fellow has mental health issues, it's a whole other thing. But I don't think that he does. He seems like he's functioning. He's involved in all these systems that it makes sense that he would have these conclusions. He's involved in magic and OTO and the Roman Catholic Church and Christian mysticism. Do you see how there's some interesting ideas in there? Gnosticism thinks that the material world is an illusion and that we're ultimately divine. And OTO and Thelema is about using your will to shape reality. And there's a lot of interesting things in some of these systems, but they go off the deep ends real fast. If you get involved in all this stuff that's all led by intuition with no logic and reason leading the way, you're not going to know up from down, left from right, because how are you going to tell what is right and what's just an intuition that got wrong and messed up in translation? Because intuition is very hard to decipher and decode. It's very dreamlike. So you could go way off in the wrong direction. So yes, we've been talking a lot about this lately. I think we talked about it when we were talking about Freemasonry in my last video. It's the video right before this one. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, where we talked about Freemasonry and the secret version of Christianity. So if you haven't seen any of my videos, check that out, because my last video we talked about Freemasonry and Gnostic Christianity, which this guy was part of Gnostic Christianity, which is like the secret society version of Christianity, essentially. And that's why I just want to warn you guys, right? Like, we talk about this stuff on my channel, but be careful with it. They will get you all turned around, and they try to lure you in with like promises of secrets, or you're gonna learn magic spells, or the grand 33rd degree secret of look, like I say, Hyperianism isn't a secret society. It's not a cult. It's not esoterica. We're not trying to preserve some ancient tradition. We are forward thinking and forward oriented. And what our goal is to do is to teach the world. We're not trying to hide anything. We're not a secret society. We want to bring information to as many people as possible. We're a system of knowledge based on logic and reason. And we are like a university teaching people so that they can reach new levels of consciousness for themselves, giving them giving people the tools to know how to think for themselves and become masters of their own lives, and to live together in a harmonious collective. We're working on becoming the best versions of ourselves and the best collective that we can possibly be, to create a better humanity and a better world, increase the quality of life for every individual and the community and the collective and everyone involved. So, crazy story, very interesting. Be careful with all that stuff. I hope this is, case in point. And I have a lot more videos. Go check them out on my channel. So I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports. If you haven't liked and subscribed to my channel, please do that right now. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports on Patreon, especially, let's see. And why is it not up on screen? I just recently updated. Oh, here we go. Bam. There we go. Big shout out to Renaissance Fairy, Trent, Cassidy, Michael, Angela, Maria, High Expectations Counseling, Jordy, and Svetlin, and everyone else who supports. Thank you guys so much. If you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. The link will pop up right over here. You'll get access to our weekly secret live streams. We're having one right after this, and our hidden Discord server, the Citadel, and a lot more. Helps out a lot. It's the best way to support my work. If you feel like you ever learned something or gotten something from my videos, consider supporting. Thank you very much.